League Baseball's trade deadline is tomorrow in the afternoon, which means that Ben Cherington has a day and a half to continue dreading what he absolutely does not want to do. Good morning to you. Good Monday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or hockey. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. Pirates 6, Diamondbacks 5 in 10 innings. Insane ending all around from both perspectives. But ultimately, Colin Holderman gets the final out, and the Pirates get to leave Phoenix with one win out of the 3 games out there as they head into a 3-game set beginning tonight against the Astros in Houston. The more pressing issue as it relates to the, I guess you could say short-term and long-term future of the franchise is what, if anything, Cherington's going to be able to muster up the gumption to do over the next 36 hours. And I actually believe that gumption is part, not all, but part of the reason that he just continues to stand idly by as other teams snap up players that the Pirates sometimes are legitimately in on, sometimes aren't in on at all, and never actually get. I've shared with you many times about Cherington's passion for the process, a subject that he brought up yet again nauseatingly yesterday on his radio show, about how valuable and how important it is. And no, it's not. Winning the games that are being played right in front of your nose. That's what matters. At this stage, in year 5, with legitimate top-end talent already on the roster, notably, of course, Paul Skeens, who's pitching tonight against the Astros, Mitch Keller, who pitched wonderfully yesterday against the Diamondbacks, and of course a handful of others. Now is the time to do this. Now is the time it's fair to expect this. 5 years into the process. But he doesn't budge, and Jazz Chisholm goes somewhere else, and Randy Arozarena goes somewhere else. And this player goes over here, and that player goes over there, and the Pirates continue to add nothing, which is exactly, by the way, what they've added all season long, with the exception of Joey Bart being brought on as a project, and a successful project at that. Why is this? Why? How? What's happening here? This is what everybody wants to know, and if you've come along late in this, and by that I mean really late, as in you're new to following the team or whatever, I'm going to give you a little bit of a background here as to why Cherington prioritizes winning the trade over winning games. It's because he's not very good at trades. I'm going to go over a handful of his most significant moves, beginning with Starling Marte to the Diamondbacks for Liover Peguero and a pitcher named Brennan Malone. Peguero's still in the minors at age 23. Malone, I don't even know. And Marte went on to sign a 4-year, $78 million deal in 2022, which tells you what his value continued to be in his career. Yes, Marte demanded the trade out. No, it doesn't mean you have to get nothing for him. Josh Bell was traded right around that same time. What's happened to him, even the past week in getting put on waivers by the Marlins and whatever, is immaterial to this. The trade was a handful of years ago. Bell was moved to the Nationals for Will Crowe and Eddie Yean. And after that, Bell would eventually sign another 2-year, $33 million deal. He held up his value. The other two were basically worthless. Jameson Taillon to the Yankees. Remember that one? That one was seen as a steal. The Pirates got Rowanzi Contreras and then ruined him. They got Miguel Yajure. They got Kanan Smith-Njigba, who was just cut like a month ago. They got a middle infield prospect named Michael Escotto. Whiff, whiff, whiff. And when it comes to Contreras mega whiff, meaning not only the analysis and the acquisition, but also the development. Adam Frazier to the Padres. Frazier at the time, and remember that that's how players are evaluated whenever it's veteran for prospect deals, was a 3.6 WAR guy. He was looking like he was in a run for the batting title. And what Frazier brought back from San Diego was Tucupita Marcano, somebody named Mitchell Miliano. I don't think I've ever heard that name in my life. And Jack Sawinski, who was just sent down to Indianapolis last night, batting 182. I can promise you that if one takes a hard look at all of the offers, and there were a bunch of them that summer for Frazier, this probably was the worst offer he could have taken. Jacob Stallings, just to throw in an example, actually a classic example of attempting to sell high on somebody. Right after a 2.5 WAR season, a Gold Glove, and all that other positivity about Stallings, he was sent to the Marlins for Zach Thompson, Kyle Nicholas, and Connor Scott. Thompson flamed out pretty quickly here. Nicholas, we'll see, doesn't look like he has all the command that you'd want. Nonetheless, nothing really there. How about Clay Holmes to the Yankees? Do you remember that? Right after Holmes finally started looking like he was coming around that one weekend in San Francisco, he's turned out to be a star, really, in New York. What the Pirates got back was Diego Castillo and Hoy Park. They were seen at the time as having bench upside, meaning that if things would go really well for them, they'd be bench players. Well, guess what? They're not even that now. And then there's the one trade that did work out well for Cherington. To an extent, Joe Musgrove was sent to the Padres. Joe's a really, really good pitcher. And one could still argue that the Padres got the better end of it, but at least anything came back to the Pirates in the form of David Bednar. 3 other players came who didn't do anything. Another player came, but he was flipped to the Mets for Andy Rodriguez, who still is seen as having a promising future. So that's at least something. That's at least what you would have hoped for out of some of these other exchanges, and didn't happen. And if you were Cherington and this was your history, you'd be hiding under a desk right now too. You'd be worried more about the continuing perception that you're bad at trades than you would be in winning, a really important game or two over the weekend in Phoenix against the Diamondbacks, who are right there with you neck and neck in the wild card race. And I want to add this too before we go to break. The Pirates have played 105 games now. You don't get a mulligan by making a trade later today or tomorrow, because you had a whole summer of a clearly identified problem that needed to be addressed, and you did nothing, which maybe was for the best. When we come back, J1Q. This portion of Daily Shot of Pirates is brought to you by our friends at North Shore Tavern, that's directly across Federal Street from PNC Park. It's home of Steak on a Stone, an eating experience, underscoring the word experience. The steak is brought to you partially cooked on an 800-degree stone, and you do the rest. It's a ton of fun, it's a great meal, and it's a baseball atmosphere like no other in Pittsburgh. North Shore Tavern, right across Federal Street from PNC Park. Today's J1Q comes from Matthew, who says, if the GM refuses to make a trade to improve the team, then why not bring up a player with some upside to replace Nick Gonzalez instead of Ji-Hwan Bae or Alika Williams? Leover Peguero has been hitting well as of late. He'd seem to be a better option than either of those two, but are the Pirates down on Peguero? Well, Matthew, there's a lot of layers to this. I'm going to begin by reading off Peguero's season statistics, the entirety of which has happened with AAA Indianapolis. He's been batting .249 with a .310 on-base percentage, 8 home runs, and 56 RBIs. The only figure out of that you would like would be the RBIs, presuming that was an individual skill, and of course it isn't. You're right that he's had, I guess you said, what is it here, hitting well of late. He's had 3 hits in his last 2 games, but before that he wasn't doing anything. So I wouldn't paint him as being on some sort of surge. He is 23 years old. He does have talent. Are the Pirates down on him? Maybe not so much from the long-term perspective, but I mean, he can't get a call. He can't even get a tap on the shoulder. And now, even with Jack Suwinski being optioned back down, that's an obvious move, I think, to clear space for Brian Reynolds to return tonight in Houston from the Major League Baseball bereavement list. Whereas you can continue to use Williams, you could use Bay, I guess, if you wanted to at second base. I don't think he's very good there. And you're probably going to end up using Jared Triolo, who had himself a nice game yesterday in Phoenix. And that, of course, is the other part of this. Because when you're talking about trades, the best trades get made when you have the best possible capital. And the really, really good trades get made whenever you have an overflow of such capital. Pirates don't have that because they haven't been all that great at drafting. They've been terrible at developing, especially when it comes to hitting, which is what's most in demand right now. And so if you look at the specific case of the teams who were dealing with the Marlins as it related to Jazz Chisholm, the Miami Herald, not the Pirates, I've seen some cynicism about this. The Miami Herald reported that the Pirates were a close second in that pursuit behind the Yankees, of course. The Herald further reported that it was a whole lot of catching that had been discussed, young catching. Well, if you're the Pirates, in some alternate reality, you're swimming in young catching because you've got not only Joey Bart, who's had himself a nice belated breakout, but you've got Henry Davis, the number 1 overall pick. You've got Endy Rodriguez, who would be back and healthy for the 2025 season, but that wasn't good enough. Clearly, it wasn't good enough, or the package wasn't good enough. Whatever it is, none of this is good enough. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates, and we will be back with another one of these tomorrow.